This is Antic, the Atari 8-Bit Podcast. I'm Kay Savitz. Donald Dixon worked at Atari Research from 1983 through 1984 under Dr. Alan Kay. There he worked in robotics research and development, working on a robotic wheelchair. After Atari, Donald worked at Axlon, Nolan Bushnell's toys and consumer robotics company, and Worlds of Wonder, the company most famous for the animatronic bear toy Teddy Ruxpin. This interview took place on July 27th, 2021.
There's a lot of people I have to mention, and there's a lot of incidents that happened that kind of tie things together. First of all, I want to mention Nolan Bushnell, Donald Kingsborough, Alan Kay, Brenda Laurel, Jim Dunyan, Chris Crawford. All these guys, these names that floated in my mind had influence on my life, my career back then in robotics. And robotics is probably the number one question I got asked a lot. They said, robotics? What the hell is robotics doing in a video games company? And I want to say that I have some history that came before all Atari. I had built a robotic system that looked like me. I put my face, a rubber face of me in a robot, and it made news around the valley, and then it went nationwide. I think it was similar to what would be called, it went viral then, you know? And I made this robot, and I got sort of semi-famous, had some Saudi Arabians back me up to make another robot, and then I got more publicity. Then it all went bust. Short story, I ended up working for Intel and raising a family. I have 2 kids, and they were all babies. And I was young. I was like only in my 20s. I was like 23 at the time. And man, I was broke. Living in California trying to raise a family in Silicon Valley. There was a lot of money, but paid. But raising a family, 3 kids, was hard. So then I got a job at Intel, worked there for a while. They saw that, hey, you're actually the guy who was on TV, put some publicity up, got more circulation of my story. And then I ended up quitting Intel and going to Atari because I liked the video games, it was getting popular. And
so slow down. How'd you get hired at Atari?
I'm going to get right into that. There's another name named David Small. David Small, he was a cool guy, man. He was a cool guy. And I was always intimidated because I didn't have a degree at the time, and I was like, I was kind of timid that I didn't have a degree, so I couldn't prove anything about what I knew. But he gave me a job as a technician, and I worked at as a technician for like a couple of months. And more news came out. Well, local letter came out at Atari about what I did as a robot, making robots out of junk. I made a robot basically on what I called ghetto technology. That was my brand. Whatever I can get to make something, that was what I did. But anyway, so Alan Kay called David Small and said, hey, who's this guy, Don Dixon? I want to see him. So David Small told me to go to corporate and meet this guy named Dr. Alan Kay. And I said, what's a doctor doing that? I mean, I was really naive back then, I got to tell you. And he said, what is a doctor working at a video game company? I didn't know what it was all about. And what's corporate, man? Corporate was like heaven for a technician. Corporate, I worked at the lowly office, tech office there. So he said, hey, let's have some lunch. And they had a corporate luncheon area, separate corporate luncheon area. And he took me there and asked me a bunch of questions. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I told him about my dreams, hopes and dreams in robotics. And then Alan said, what do you think about working in corporate for a while? I said, working in corporate, yeah, I would like to, but I didn't have, I was worried about, measuring up to what corporate expect. I was just a technician, with a dream, with a dream. And but he asked me a couple of other questions, and he says, how would you? Remember, he asked me, how would I make a robot using Atari equipment? And I told him straight up, man. I like working on Atari equipment, the computers, but I think they sucked. Really tell him, because they didn't have any peripheral input and output there. Like I favored the Apple at the time. Apple II. I had the Apple II. And had open architecture, so I can plug in stuff where I can talk to robots, like arms and motors and sensors and stuff. Well, with the Atari, it was good for games, good for entertainment, for what it was made for. But for somebody like me, doing hardware stuff, extra hardware stuff, was difficult. And I told him that. I was straight up on it. He says, "Well, see what you can do. See what you can do." I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Who do I report to?" He said, "Well, this just we'll find a place for you there." And he said, "Just play." I remember he said that. He said, "Play." I said, "Man, I never talked to a superior boss before who was so cool, man." It's like, man, Alan was cool and laid back and everything, and he was talking to me straight up, and he was talking about all these things that I had different language for. And he was talking about logo, talking about logo, being Turtle Graphics, the Turtle Graphics software, because his main claim to fame, I think, at the time was Smalltalk and Lisp, And he asked me honestly what I thought about Lisp, and I said, "Man, it sucked too." So, I worked on that, I developed that too. I said, "Well, man, I'm sorry, man. This is all these parentheses, curses, parentheses. I like basic. I know basic is easy. I started getting down with him, and we hit it off for a while, and then so then I ended up talking to him further, and lunch was almost over, and I told him, "Man, my wife and I were really struggling. We're having, our stuff is in storage in over the States. Or, I moved from North Carolina to California to get this job again. And I had all my stuff in there, even the robot I made at the time before I got really, really well known at the time, local well known. So I when it failed, and I shipped everything back to North Carolina because my wife wanted to go back home. And then we ended up coming back again. But I had my stuff stuck in storage. And I said, "Man, I got to get my robot out of there." I wasn't even thinking about my stuff from furniture. I was thinking about my robot, and the robot's name was Ahmed, by the way. And there's a lot of new stuff on the internet you might find about it. Anyway, Ahmed, the robot, was 7 foot tall, and he arranged for all my stuff to be shipped back, and the robot was brought to Atari. And it was like, 7 foot tall. And everyone was like, "Oh, wow." And I would say, "Who did that? Who did that?" This thing looked like, I had a cape over its head. I mean, to me, a robot's got to be not just cool. It's got to be bad. And this thing was bad. And it looked like a warrior, man. It had the arms, and it had, it had my face. I had my face, but around that I had a crown around it and everything. Then I had a cape behind it. It was bad. It was bad. And it was on a wheelchair. And then, Alan said, "Hey, Don, what you got in that wheelchair?" I said, "Well, I got, the motors and the Apple and all that stuff." And this is how you doing this and doing that. This is, there's some research going on with some really cool wheels. You want to see it? And I said, "What's that? What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I'm going to hook you up with some guy that's doing some stuff, really cool stuff with wheels. And they were called Omni wheels. There was the guy who invented it was by the name of Bill Law, and I remember going to I can't remember the name of the research area that he was working on, but they were a research group too, and we were focused on doing stuff with wheels, those Omni wheels. Omni wheels, by the way, they go in a straight direction and lateral direction. In other words, they can go forward and go sideways. And they're really unique because you can go in one direction with a robot without turning and go to the other essentially. And so he said, check them out, see what you can do with that. Get rid of those wheels and put these wheels on it. So I said, "Man, okay." So I went to there, and I was amazed, man, because it was, they were doing stuff with wheelchairs, actually put it in a wheelchair to help the handicapped. And that's when I started really understanding what Alan was picking me for, because he was looking for a creative person. And this is what I'm assuming, because I'm a creative guy. I'm self-taught mostly. and I'm a go-getter. Everything that I'm talking about, I've done it. I've made it. And I'll make it, and I'll know how to tell other people to make it better, people that are skilled, But I'll make everything first myself. And as he saw that, I'm assuming, I saw that, and he put me in with a group of people because when I brought the Omni Wheels over and started working with that, and I started seeing the other guys around there, Jim Dunyan, so many of the names. It's been 40 years, so many names I can remember. But I tell you one person I will remember the most, and that's Brenda Laurel. Brenda Laurel, I got to say, hey, babe, I had a crush on your mind. She was beautifully gifted and so intelligent. I mean, the way she explained things to me was in a way that I can understand it in my terms, or my level of understanding, and apply it or think about those things and those ideas to my own and apply it to what I was doing or creating. And I can go into that, and I don't want to bore you, but I'm going to tell you about some of the things that I worked on. I mentioned logo. Excuse me?
So please do. Please tell me.
Yeah, I mentioned logo, and I mentioned the Omni Wheels, and all of a sudden, my thing about robots was not about machines that can do things like like steam shovels, mechanical puppets that pick and place things from point A to point B. I was looking at robotics as a technology to bring things to life. The character Ahmed the robot was me. Was basically a puppet. To me, robots were puppets, and the robotics was what made the puppets work. And then the intelligence was something else I got into later, and that's where I'll go into logo. But I started when I started mingling with the group of PhDs who I was intimidated with, and getting to know them better, and getting to talk with people, and share the same ideas. And I some of the things that I used to think about and wonder about. I said, man, these guys, these are people I can talk to who understood me, and I could still, hey man, I still could say, hey, at the beginning of my sentence, talk about what I want to talk about, and end it with man, still be cool, and still be able to have an intelligent conversation with them. Not always, but sometimes it was raw, and it was like, I think I was only black guy there in corporate research. So with some cultural things. I mean, most of them were cool, but there was some racism going on in there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I got an email recently from one of the women who worked there, and she said that there was some sexism that she kind of had forgotten about, but then she sent me a long paragraph about it. And so, how was it for you?
Well, I'll put it this way: most of the time, I didn't care, so I didn't notice.
Yeah.
But it was there, and it was there. It was there in a way because here I am in this corporate playground, in this what do you call it? Was a research center basically with a bunch of PhDs working on different items for the betterment of the company. And here I was just playing around, doing I don't know what the hell I was doing here, man. I mean, I was trying to fit in, and I was still favoring my Apple II because Apple II it's easy hardware for me to do my stuff. They have peripherals that you can buy that was already done for controlling several motors, and even they had I remember SpeechLab. SpeechLab had a primitive voice recognition module you can slap in there. It was one word at a time, but it was impressive. I could talk to Ahmed the robot, and he would move an arm. He would move an arm, and it was great. But I had to impress these guys, and like one time the first time before I got the larger lab, I was in my office, and no windows. It was dark in there and everything. I think Chris Croft's office was right next to mine. There was another cool guy next to mine. I can't remember his name, but he was doing cool stuff there. But I had my office, and they said, "Do something, man. Do something." They gave me an Atari 400, and I said, "Man, this is shit, man. This ain't gonna work. This shit." Man, I didn't like the keys. The keys were like elephant buttons, and it was clunkier. it wasn't slick like the Apple one, so it didn't look cool too.
Right.
And then where can you plug stuff into it? You gotta, everything was concealed so I can plug it in. Now, I'm not gonna put it down for what it was made for, but for me, I told Alan the first off that why would I was using what I did because eventually I gotta have to do something for the computer or do something for Atari. It's gotta be what I do, and that's hardware stuff, and then I got into the software later. But what I did was I took an Apple II computer board and put it underneath a keyboard that looked like the Atari. So when someone came in the room, they couldn't see me typing on the Apple computer. I was that paranoid. I don't want anybody. And then I let the PhD guys and all these these guys that are walking around, and Chris Crawford and occasionally poke his head in. How you doing, Don? And cool, all right. But I would hide the thing. And then one time, Jim Dunning came in and he saw me. He says, "We're not working on Apple IIs. We're working on Ataris, man. We're working on Ataris, Don." I said, "Man, I can't do this shit, man. I can't do that because this look, there's no peripherals I can don't plug into." And he told me about the SIO.
Yes, serial I/O port. Yeah.
The SIO. And he said, because I told him, I said, "Where's the inputs and outputs? You can only input in the state." He said, "No, that's not true because the pin 1 and pin 2, you can use that as a serial port. And you can do some things with that." I said, and I wasn't into serial ports. I wasn't into parallel ports, just directly out. And then he showed, he told me how, he looked me up some. I think at the time, was it Jim Lederman? I don't know if it was him or not. But anyway, they said you got to get out of here now. You don't belong sitting down. You need to work on stuff, And so they hired the manager. They hired, they got me the next larger room, and it was a lab. And I said, "Man, I need some real help." And who else better I can think of than my brother, my brother Ronald. And we happen to be twins. I'm a twin, by the way. And my name is Donald. His name is Ronald. Mm-hmm. And I say it's like R&D. It was a good hook, man. So then I said, "Ron, what you doing, man?" And he said he just happened to be working with a company called Microbots. They made a small tabletop robotic arm that worked with the stepper motors, and it had a keypad controller that had memory, and you could step it, and it was pretty damn good. They had two types. They had one was called, the bigger one was called Alpha, and the smaller one was called I forgot, Microbot arm. I don't know what it was, but I said, "Man, listen, why don't you join me?" Because Ronald's experience was more as a technician. He's not, he wasn't into it deep as on me, but my brother was my twin, and we've been womb mates, womb, WOMB, since we were babies. So we know each other. And plus, also, I was a little more shy and timid, and Ronald was the muscle. He would sniff out any kind of prejudice going on there, and he was telling me, "Hey, man, this guy's not cool, that guy's not cool," And he was always a tough guy, So I kind of skirt past the racism and all that stuff by having a companion by my side, and then I got the respect. After I started building, making something, when they started seeing things come out of that lab, we took a wheelchair and we put two of the microbot arms on the side. We took the microbot arm set on the table like this. Was a 6-degree freedom arm, and we took it and turned it like this. The sideways and put it on both sides, and they had grippers it was like arms, and then we had cameras on there for some binocular vision, stereo vision,
yeah.
And we had all this stuff. And what are we doing? I don't know. Well, I said, somebody asked me, "What are you making?" And we were making some big huge thing, and then I said, "Alan told me to do something and make something out of wheelchairs. That's what I'm doing." He said, "Why not do something with the arm wheels?" So I said, "Okay, Ron." I asked my brother Ron. I said, "What do we think of that?" So we went over to several other states and looked at. I was Michigan. We went to Michigan Robotics Fair, and we saw this cool robotic arm that looked like an elephant arm, but it was made out. It was operated by pneumatics, and we said, "Okay, let's put something like an army wheel on the base and put a slink arm, like an elevatronics arm on the top, and then we'll come out with something that can at least open doors. Because at the time, you know, we got to think about it, man. I'm at a games company working on robots, totally off from what they're doing, far off into the future of what technology and cost will make it into marketplace. And here we are dreaming about what a robot can do in the home. That's when we started getting real, man. I started getting real about thinking about practical things. Alan sparked it off, and I started talking with other folks, and then I looked at Logo as being a software language for controlling it, and how the Atari computer can program this. And then one day, Alan came by. It's rare, rarely. He was rarely around, man. He was like rarely around. But when he did come by, and he poked his head in, he says, "Hey, man, I got a treat for you guys." The treat. I said, "What the heck? What do you mean treat? You got some weed?" Stuff like that. No, man, I got some. I want you to see the meat. And then walks Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones, the producer guy. Quincy. He said, "Hey, bro, I've been hearing a lot about you. You guys have got a cool lab here and all this." I said, "What? Quincy Jones? Damn, man!" And then I started giving him high five and all the other stuff, right? And then next who walks in is Michael Jackson. I don't know what the hell they were doing there. And this appears apparently Alan has some musical talent and some special kind of keyboard musical instrument he plays. Do you know anything about that?
About Alan and his keyboard? No, I don't.
Well, yeah, he's a musician. He's a fine musician. He's I guess a maestro or whatever it is, and in his particular field. And he's into jazz, so he's in the circuits of that crowd. And Quincy, of course, he's the man. And at that time, they just they hit the Thriller just had a big hit, and Michael was like Bugungus rich, and he was doing whatever you wanted, and he liked robots, and he heard about me, and he wanted to see what I was doing, so he came down there. I was impressed by Michael. He was cool, man. We talked around with him, we jacked a bit about robots and all this and that. He was more into the fantasy type of rock robots, like almost like them fighting and all that. I wasn't into that. I was talking about doing stuff like bringing a creature to life, something like that. But it was brief, but we talked a little bit about his interests and what I was interested. And I was like, I was saying to myself, or I was talking to him, and then I was saying every 5 minutes to myself in my brain, "Damn, I'm talking to Michael Jackson." I'm talking to Michael Jackson, Thriller, man, And Ronald was saying, Ronald was there too, and he was like, man, this guy is shit, man. This guy is shit, man. It's just Michael Jackson. We were more interested in Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones was like, he was just like so not just cool, but he talked to us like he was an uncle, man, Because I was telling him, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. Somebody came by here and I saw Alf, Ahmed the robot, and said, Ahmed the robot had, his eyes, he used to make like a rubber mask of my face, but his mouth looked like, he'd been in an auto accident. He had one eye missing, so I replaced that with a Polaroid rangefinder sensor. So he had a patch on his eye. He looked like a pirate, and it was really scarred up, and it looked ugly, man. It was my face. And somebody walked by to them and by one day saw Ahmed at the door, and they said, "Man, that robot looks just like you." But they were saying it sarcastic, like that. I thought, oh, man, I felt bad about it. And I told Quincy about that. He said, "Sure, it looks like you, man." He said, "Sure, it looks like you. Because you had your hands on it." And man, I'm telling you, that really hit. Excuse me. Man, you ain't hear nothing yet. I'm telling you. Anyway, the reason why I said that, because I had several more encounters with Quincy, and each time he had something to say that affected my direction and career and gave me strength to keep going, And but he said, "Yeah, it looked just like you because you had your hands on it," and I knew right then what he meant, as that's what creativeness is all about. It's you have your hands on it. It's your signature. It's you. You know, like a painter. You know, when he paints, or when a writer writes, or when a singer sings. Any artist, and science is an art too. Science and technology is an art. It is art. It's not just a tool. It's an art, and people that behind it, the creative talents behind it, when they have their hands on it, they create something that's unique just by their being with it, and it becomes more unique when you group a bunch of people together with different talents and different backgrounds and experience and but share the same kind of goal. They all put their hands on something. There's something unique comes out of that. Man, when Atari crashed, man, it was like not crashed, but when they fired everybody, it was like death in the family of me. Man, it was like I knew where it could have gone because, man, I hope I'm not diversion too much, but getting back to Quincy, when he was there and Mike was there, they went and toured Atari. They saw all the people do it. It was just us. Alan brought him to us directly. He brought him us directly, but for the rest of the tour, they were guided around to see various things. And they came back again, and we talked a little bit again. And then they went off. About a week later, Ron and I got signed autograph albums of Thriller. And some it was limited edition recording of E.T. Michael Jackson narrating E.T. He signed that and said, "Hey man, you guys were great and all this was fantastic and everything." You know, I said, "Yeah man, that'd be great." And Ron would say, "Yeah man, that'd be great if you give us some money, man. You know, we got some E.T." So I said, "Man, that's my brother. My brother is like rock, really well." But anyway, that's not the only encounter that had a great influence on me. The next person I met that was brought to me by Alan, directly by Alan. Alan was, man, the guy was more than a genius, man. He had insight. He had insight, at least as far as I'm concerned, because the people were there, they were all, they were handpicked by him. They all had different talents, but we all had something connection together. We were working together from natural inspiration, and he knew how to kind of pick that out, just like I guess Quincy was to Michael, he picked the right people, right? And anyway, so Alan brings another guy that I was blown by because I couldn't believe he was sitting in my chair, and this was Jim Henson. He brought
Wow.
Jim Henson into my room, and I said, "What?" First, when he brought him in and he sat down in my chair, my office chair, what was it? It was a lab. We just turned the lab into our playground. We had an office desk in the corner, and I had my nice chair, and it was motorized. So I may put some motors on it for something. And so he sat in my chair and he said, "Hey, what you guys up to?" And I just couldn't think about it. I said, "What's this white man sitting in my chair, nasty as a beard, scrappy looking?" And then Alan, I didn't say this out loud. Come on, man. First of all, Alan said, "This guy is special. You know who he is." I said, he introduced himself. And I said, "Oh, from the Muppets." She said, "Yeah, I see you're doing things with your face there on the robot and how you control it." And he was asking me all this thing, how I was controlling it. I said, "Well, I'm using several motors here, a little this and that, spitting blue." And I'm basically showing that I did this. I was really proud of how I took stone knives and bear skins and made them into something that worked. That's what all my techniques were. And then usually I come up with some new kind of thing too from creating some out of what I didn't have. But I explained that to him, and he would say, "Yeah." He was really quiet, but he was subtle and talking, and I can't remember the whole conversation. I just remember him saying things about puppetry and how it affects how they get emotions out of just moving the head like this, like that, and subtly things. And I listen. The things he was saying, I don't remember the whole conversation, but they stuck to me because I always thought about Jim Henson when I was developing my character robots, and I'll get into that in a second. But he told me about expressions, making the facial expressions, and also about exaggerated expressions on his puppets. And that you don't need a lot. You can do a lot with just one motion. You can do this, and so why did you guys tell me all this stuff? Well, that's cool. It's nice. And first of all, Jim Henson, I admire him, but he wasn't like Quincy Jones. He was but he was still cool, man. It was like these guys come into my lab and see me and my junk. I had Ahmed, I had the Ahmed wheels, I had a wheelchair, and that's some other stuff. A bunch of everybody seemed to have some junk to put in my lab. Like they were doing some. Somebody had two mirrors and two TVs, and they made 3D out of using two mirrors and then two opposing TVs. They didn't have nowhere to put it, so I put it in Don's lab, yeah, man. So that was cool. So I take from that because to get into the technical side of what I was doing there is I was trying to find myself and coming up with something that would be useful as a product for the first time, not just making it because I liked it, but thinking about what can I do as a product, Only thing I could think about was making something that can talk, and blink his eyes and say something and maybe move around. So I started looking at logo and I started looking at Lisp and I started reading what Lisp can do. And then I started thinking, this thing wasn't shit after all, man. This was actually some badass software that can do things with language, the cars and the cutters and all that stuff about taking apart the sentence. Because I was just seeing that I'm self-taught as a computer whiz, I do my own program. I know I do all my programming. I'm all self-taught, but I didn't know how to understand the language of recursive language until I started reading Lisp and Logo and looking at how the first program they had in one of the programs, interpreting program, was the animal program. Yeah, it was the animal program and also the doctor program. Those two different programs showed how a machine could appear like it was thinking or talking.
The animal program being, I'm thinking of an animal.
Yeah. Let me tell you, explain. The animal program is a simple program that keeps adding nodes to its yes and no answers. Like, does it have feet? Does it have the web feet? Does it have feathers? And then yes, no. Then it would add onto it. It's very tuplets, whatever you call them, tuplets or whatever. And then the cursive language was good for taking apart sentences to take the structure of a sentence that would have composes of parts of sentence like nouns, verbs, adjectives, and verb sentence and nouns, verb phrases, noun phrases, and I started learning about that and heuristics. I started getting into it, man. I started saying, wow, this then I started talking to all those brainiacs around there and picking their brain like I should, and sharing ideas too. It was sharing ideas. And I was saying, and things they were saying to me, I was saying, man, I call this, they said, the heuristics, heuristics is about the study and breakdown of logic and, blah, 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 blah. I said, oh yeah, you're talking about whatchamacallit down the, I was talking in my slang and what I knew. I said, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking too, man. Let me read some more about this. Hey, Alan Kay's name on this thing, man, too. Damn. I said, but so I got into it even more, and I haven't stopped, since, man. I've done some incredible things from that started. I was doing a lot of stuff before then, but it was like ghetto technology. And after that, man, I was bad. Because I got the knowledge from those guys, and I got the experience, and I got the tool. Plus, I had that. They had a lot of money. They gave me I wasn't kidding. I could just play there. I was probably the only one playing there because everybody else was working on product. It was even what's his name? Jim Dunyon came by, and he would always come by often. I usually have a great time with him. He was always kidding us, but he always says, "Well, why don't you guys get to work? What you guys doing, man? You get to be working on Atari stuff. What are you doing, players?" So, well, this is what I told me to do. But yeah, so it was a wonderful time. I can never forget it, man. I tell you. And I can go. There's a lot. I know there's a lot. Let me just mention again the names that influenced me. Donald Kingsborough, who went off to start Worlds of Wonder. Donald Kingsborough became Start Worlds of Wonder, and David Small, who hired me at Atari first as a technician. They both went together. When Atari fell, everybody lost their jobs. A lot of folks went to other industries, and David Small went to Worlds of Wonder, and then another name, Nolan Bushnell. Um, when I got laid off, I went to Sacramento. I was laid off for about a year or so. Man, it was terrible. And then I wanted to get back in the game, man. After that, playing with the Atari lab. But I went back to Silicon Valley. Man, I had just enough gas over the getting to the drive, the parkway of Nolan's company. What's the name of it? It'll come to me in a minute, man. 40 years. Let me give it to. But he's had a company to start Androbot. You ever heard of Androbot?
Yeah.
Okay, Androbot. And he was the robotics was just getting into the works now. It started becoming the vernacular, the words were getting
Axlon.
Axlon.
Took me a
Axlon, man. I'll tell you, we're getting old, man. Getting old. Okay, Axlon. And so I actually went into his office, and I was so poor, so broke at that time. I had the kids in the back seat, my wife in the front seat with me, because we had to. I wanted to make sure I can get enough money coming back, or get money for food that night. We needed food that night just to feed the family, And I was hoping to get a job there. I had to get a job, so I took them there so I could stay there long enough, Couple of days I had to wait. I filled out a part of the application at the human resources place, and I waited. I told them I was waiting outside, and then they told Nolan again that they needed to see me because I was not going anywhere because I couldn't go anywhere, and so I went up to his office, and I said, "Man, I'm into robotics, and I'm starting to get into AI, but the thing he asked me, why did it fail? Why did the work fail at Atari? And I said, well, I guess it's not technology. The electronics and software was just not up to what the dreams that I had for it, and not practical as a product. And he said, yeah, you're right. But the technology is there. We just got to reduce it, And he says, no, what we got to do, we got to sell them robots, and we got to put it in something plush. And he pulled out this teddy bear. It was called AG Bear. We talked to it, and it went, oh, we would talk back. And he said, we got to fool them. And he was like B.T. Barnum. He reminded me of P.T. Barnum. P.T. Barnum?
Sure. Yeah.
From Reading Buzz,
Sucker born every minute.
Yeah. He was a great guy, but he was a salesman, and he was not a con man, because he always told them what people thought they wanted, and they enjoyed it. But Nolan was good at talking and selling his stuff, man. He knows how to. Not only that, but he knew how to get you worked up so that you got to follow on what he's doing. And I said, man, you're right, man. You got to think. I can't think of like a PhD. That's not. We got to get down to make some money, And he said, where do you want to work? I said, well, I'm not an engineer yet. I can do technical stuff, And I just, if you want me to really, for practical purpose, I probably work best in customer service, where I help and repair returns. So that's where he put me. And I did really good there. I did very well. I was there for a couple of months. And then after that, there was an opening for a technician in research. There's another guy, the name of Henry escaped me. But I ended up going to it was not like R&D at the Atari. This was research for how to get the price down. That was his research. Research research this and find out where you can get the price knocked off this product till it was down to the pennies, and then come up with some idea off of that. So I was put in that research group, and then I started seeing what I love, man, you know, microcontrollers that can control things, not an Atari that was closed to, fixed for one thing only. I started seeing devices and parts that I can play with, and I started on the side of trying to reduce the cost on the product. And there was a product called Petster. It was two many products, Petster, and it was a robot cat. It was a cat on two wheels. You clap your hands, and it would go left or right, depending on and you talk to it by the number of claps. Pretty damn clever, And that was what I loved about it. So, but all these devices were there, and they were affordable. It was a toy, but it was robotic technology, man. Sensors, feedback, communication, mobility, sensors. That's robotic technology. And so I'll put in there. Now, it still wasn't useful other than for entertainment, but it was still a practical robot toy. And it was robotics was getting components were getting cheaper too at that time, and so there was this boom of high-tech toys. That's when the high-tech toy industry started being named right around that time, I think. And so I started experimenting too, man. I made a ball and put a sensor in there, and I pester with a sensor in his nose, and it would chase the ball and push it and it would roll off. And of course, the sensor would pick up the ultrasonics over here, and it would go in that way. So it looked intelligent. It looked like a cat was playing with the ball. And one time, Nolan comes in. He was smoking a pipe at the time, and you can always tell when Nolan was coming because you could smell his pipe. So he would come in, and he said, "Who did that?" And everybody looked at me and said, "Donald did that." And he said, "What? You come here. You come over here. You're going to do developing products." And that's when I started working on my own ideas for toys. I came up with a lot of ideas for toys. That's a lot of minutes coming back. I know. So anyway, at the time, I was being headhunted by people, in the industry, in the toy industry, at the time, So one time I got a call from David Small. And they say, "Don, what you doing, man?" I said, I'm working with Nolan. He says, Nolan, man. At the time, I don't know why people didn't like Nolan for some reason. Some folks didn't like Nolan because they always got the better of them somehow. I call him a good businessman. And to me, he's a brother on the streets of technology. He's a brother on the streets of technology because he knows how to make money. And he knows how to make product that people want. He created the industry. He created a video game, And what's a coincidence, I ended up working with him after Atari. But David Small called me up and says, "Don, why don't you come here to and look around what we're doing here with Wowee, man. I think you're going to like it."
And he was at Worlds of Wonder at the time, right?
I said, did I say Wowee? That's years later. Worlds of Wonder. Worlds of Wonder. And they were doing Teddy Ruxpin, and laser tag was a big hit there, And I was just, I know that. Before I went there, I got to back up. Before he called me and I heard we were doing our own version of a Teddy Ruxpin called Gabby Bear. Gabby Bear. It had a magic button you turn it. It was crappy, man. You put a tape in the back of it. It was really cheap. The content was lousy. Man, it looked like ugly. It was an ugly ripoff of Teddy Ruxpin. From what I've seen, from when I first started, because I've seen it on the commercials and everything, and I didn't know Small was working for that company. So he called me and said, "Hey, man, come and interview here." And I had a lot of loyalty for Nolan. Man, I really loyalty, because man, I was, on my feet, off my feet, and he helped me up, and plus, he just gave me a lot of chances. But I was getting ready to get the itches to do something more. I wanted to do something more, and I wanted to. So I just make toys. I want to make something really, really. What I thought was cool, not just from somebody else's directions, but my own direction. So anyway, I went to Small, interviewed with him, and he gave me a job on an R&D developing. First working with Gizmo. Gizmo was again a guy who was a chief engineer who was pretty well known. Anybody that knows when I say Gizmo, who worked at Worlds of Wonder knows what I'm talking about. and I forgot his name too. But I sat next to him, and they called me Little Gizmo because I worked with him, and he basically I was like the little me, mini me with him because he was the senior guy. I was a lower associate engineer, and but he started letting me play with some stuff and tell me about physics and teach me little things and that. And I picked up on a lot of it. And I said, I wanted to. They were trying to get something beyond laser tag, and I said, what would be better than laser tag? A flying target. A flying target, man. A flying target. I mean, talking about something flying. At the time, the technology did not allow you to put motors with a battery in the air, unless it was a RC airplane, and Tyco Toys was doing a lot with that, but they weren't VTOLs.
Sure.
Vertical takeoff.
Right, and landing. This is years before drones were a common thing.
Oh yeah, no.
Sure.
I'm going to lead up to that because I've got a couple of patents on this design because this was after I left. Was when I came up with this idea, so I got a patent. Gizmo was working on using water pressure. He had some kind of device that would amplify water, that would use water pressure. The thing is, it takes a lot of water to keep something flying up in there, and you got this hose going up in it. It's still tethered. There's a tether flying. It would stabilize. You can control it. It was dumb. It was. I wouldn't say dumb. I shouldn't say that. I would say it was brilliant, but it was dumb. Anyway, I thought about another way. I thought about why not rotating wings, in that if you had rotating wings, because I was thinking like a ghetto technology. Hey, think logically. Airplane goes this way, women went in circles. Rotating wing. So rotate it fast enough, looks like a flying saucer. Put lights on it, it's a lighted flying saucer, and it's hovering in the air. So I made that, and but I drew that. I did not make it because I was working at one at a time, and I was ready. I was getting the itch and saying, "Man, I'm tired of making other people rich. I want to do this myself." So at the time, I was doing. I had so many ideas I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it myself. And my wife was looking at me like, "You crazy? You better not leave your job. What you gonna do?" I said, "No, I gotta do this. I gotta do this." So I'm not going too long, man. But I ended up leaving that company and still pursuing my flying saucer concepts. And I kept tinkering, and I finally made a rotating flying wing that had an auto pitching wing. So when it flew in the air, it would hover in the air, and then when the power died out, the wings would, it would do counter rotation. It would still rotate in the same direction, just like a helicopter wings does when it drops. But in this was, it was just the wing. It was two pivoting wings. Basically, it was a helicopter blade, just a helicopter blade. That was the first design. It was a helicopter blade, and it had two propeller wheels on it. Look it up on I got a patent on this on the internet. But it was bad, man. It was. I would say it was. I was one of the contributors to the first VTOLs, battery powered. Because man, god dang, I just remembered. I worked with a guy between Atari and Axlon. I hooked up with some of the escapees from Atari, and they hooked me up with a guy named Paul Moeller. That name is
Say again, Paul what?
Paul Moeller.
No, I don't know the name.
Yeah, okay, Moeller. So Moeller, he's famous for it's called a speed trap or something. It's a muffler for motorcycles. He had a manufacturer. He's a rich guy from Almonds, I think, like that. But he's also an inventor, and he was a little wacko inventor because he'd been working on a flying real flying vehicle for since the '60s. Never really got off the ground, and you should look this up on the internet too. They finally got to the point that it started looking cool, And the technology was getting close to what it would take to control electrical motors. Well, this was gas turbines, but it was still how to control the thing. He was getting close. He was like one of the pioneers in that, using the sensors and that. And I ended up working with him. And I started developing things. And he took the name, but I can tell you this, man. I was the first to give name to the word aerobotics, because when I started working with them and creating, helping them develop, I did not create or invent any of the technology for VTO at the time, but before this came later. But and how to do it without using blender blades to keep it up. I was using a slowly rotating wing was safer than blending blades, but he was using blending blades, 4 of them, in the shape of a donut that had some aerodynamics to it and some stability, but it was still tethered. The powder was still tethered. And I said, hey, man, why don't you call that aerobots? Because, it can do stuff in the air, maybe have a little arm on it with a robot on it. That's what I was thinking. So you put the name aerobot in there. So whenever you see that name, aerobot, that's where it came from. Because I gave him the tip on that name. All right, nice. back to the future. All right, so I ended up leaving Rosa Winter. I started working more on the rotating flying wing, and I get some funding for it. I mean, some guys out of some real estate, they came and gave me money, man. And they even bought me a house. They bought me a house. These guys were in real estate, so what's the name for real estate? It was in Michigan, but I moved to Michigan at the time. After I moved to Michigan, and these real estate guys say, sorry, they were young too, and they were really successful and with their business, and they saw me. I was on TV a lot. I always call somebody, hey man, this is a cool guy. It makes some flying sauce in his backyard. You gotta go check him out. Click. That was me. But they would call, the newspaper would come, and I'm getting free advertising. The newspaper coming. Anyway, so they saw me and they gave me money, and I ended up being more independent and just doing my own thing, man. And then I called up David Galoob, the Galoob toys.
Sure.
Because a couple of times I asked him where job. He said no, and he was independent. After that, I think Galoob failed, or he got sued, or his company got in some financial trouble. He just had to leave the company and do his own thing. And I started doing some projects for him, vacuum clean. I made a robot vacuum cleaner for him before robot vacuum cleaners started coming out. Hey man, I'm going to take the credit when I say credit is due. I did it first. And it didn't look the same. It wasn't like a flat hockey puck. It had, a little upright, and it did have Omni wheels on it, and it was super expensive, but it was a vacuum cleaning robot. And I said, man, let's sell this. He said, nah, it's too expensive. But I went on to my career creating things. Now I'm bringing it up to present. Can we go into that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. This was 20 years ago, because I've been in Korea. I'm in Korea right now. I've been here for 20 years. And I came here for the specific goal of doing one thing, and that is developing a robot called Alpha. I'm not even calling it. I hate calling it a robot, because the term robot is the technology I use to create the things I want to create, which are character robots, And this character robot has no arms, because it's not manipulating things, but it has a lot of technology in its base, because I spent a lot of time thinking about what's his name, Muppets guy,
Jim Henson.
Jim Henson. Think about what Jim Henson said to me about facial expressions and getting emotions out of slight action and all that, and I was thinking, about the robotic arm that Ronald, my brother, company working on. There was a stepper motors with cables, and thinking about robotics being just puppets, man. Character robots being puppets. And I started thinking, Disney actually had this idea first. Disney was really a brilliant guy, because his thinking about animation is the same about animation in the real world. Animation on the flat screen, they're bringing animation to the real world. That's what the animatronics was all about. And I said, oh man, that's what I'm doing. And I'm putting intelligence to that. I'm taking AI and I'm putting marrying it to the art of robotics to create a character to bring it to life. And that's what I do. I mean, I've been trying to find myself. People say, "Hey, he's a robot guy. He's a robot guy." Man, I don't like robots. Man, I don't think I made a real robot in my life. But I have done a lot with technology. I've done high-tech toys, and all different types. I've done the aerodynamics things. That's robotics too. Aeronautics. But a lot of bringing the characters to life and making it intelligent and having to do things for children, because that's why I was in the toys. I'm a big kid myself, and I love toys, man. Who doesn't love toys?
Sure.
But I never could afford the toys that I ended up making a lot, so that's where a lot of that came from. But the character I have now called Alpha started off with that idea that I had with the Omni wheels and that snake arm. It was like an elephant arms, and I put on top of it to open a door. I was thinking, I wanted something to be flexible. I want a flexible robot. I want a flexible machine that's not threatening to humans. That's that looks that can be with humans naturally. Smooth and the soft, and then a soft robot. What? I think a lot of memories coming back. I remember Alan telling me about this. He was saying, "Donald, you got to think of soft robots." I thought at the time he was saying software robot, but I think he meant soft, it's like feeling. Anyway, and the toy industry with the plush toys like Teddy Ruxpin. Teddy Ruxpin was an animatronic robot, so
Sure.
it was plush. So I just carried that on. So, but I didn't want to make it look, go through the uncanny valley way, or trying to make something look human, or make it like an animal, and it look lousy because the technology wasn't able to make it stand and walk because the motors are too big or it's not the right proportion. So I said, man, I need to create something that's unique to the shape and form of the technology I'm going to make it use. What is it going to do? I'll send you some pictures, and I think if you went to my website, have you seen Alpha before? You've seen Alpha?
I've seen a couple of pictures, yeah, but
have you seen the videos of it at all?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay, all right. You should check it again. I just updated it. But anyway, the facial expressions in there, I got in there, especially the eyes, man. The eyes, and I have a display on it for you can, do interaction with it. And I was saying that I looked back in the time that I was using the Omni arms and Omni wheels on the flexible arm. And I did the same design in Alpha. If you look at Alpha, you'll see the Omni wheels, but they look, there's three wheels that go in up opposing directions, but they're in the shape and function of the Omni wheels. But it's my own invention. They're not wheels. They're designed to go over any terrain without harming any object. And I can go into that later, detail later. But and then the neck is just a form that holds the head. The neck holds the head up to a location to the same level as a child. It's got a really soft face. It's just a design that fits all the functions that I can put in there mechanically.
I'm watching the video now. My goodness, this thing's adorable.
Yeah, I studied a child's head. I actually designed the head to look like a child. If you turn to the side of it, you turn the head to the side, it's got the same dimensions as a child's head.
And is this a prototype, or is this a thing that is actually for sale in Korea?
I've been working. It's just a prototype. There's a prototype you see now, but it's designed to what this works like, looks like. But I've got investors now looking at it to put it in the school. You can look at the website, and the details are there. I can explain some of it to you now. But the main thing I found is I found a home for my work in education, because using puppetry, you can communicate with children a lot easier when you have a surrogate like a non-threatening character, like a cartoon or a plush toy or a nice speaking robot. As I used a child's voice with Alpha. It's not a robotic sounding thing. It's not sounding like a robot. I didn't want it. It looks like a character come to life. Just like we go to Disney, and it's an imaginary character, so it doesn't have threatening arms or anything that be unfamiliar to a child. You see this?
Uh,
all right. It's a Korean magazine.
Robot 11, is that what it's called?
Yeah. Well, no. So no.
Oh, I see. It's Robot Magazine issue 11. I see.
Yeah. This mini issue. I mean, I got tons of it here. Yeah. So anyway, the magazines I have, they have stories of alpha in each one of them. I wrote a 250-page story in English and in Korean, and every week they sent they print out 3 pages of alpha. Um, and Dave, every week is a different. It goes to the next series. It's like a series. Here's a bit of it.
Serialization of it. Oh,
yeah. Now your picture came up. So it's written in Korean and English, and it's been in publication now for like 4 years. It's been recycled. I think this is the last page to go again. And it's been, it's been kind of popular here in Korea among children, school children. They're very big up in learning education, especially English, and also into robotics and mechanical stuff out here. They're really into that. But I'm making a deal with this guy called Julia Gabriel Schools in Singapore, and they are famous for educating children under preschool, nursery school age. I'm talking about like from like 8 months till 4 years old. Young children. They have a program, especially guiding to teaching children of that age. So what they call it, pre-adolescence education, something like that. And he wants to use technology to help them, and also not just learn to speak English, but to help and verbalizing words naturally by natural conversation, and sounds. And another long story is I started a company called Creative Robotics and was very successful in getting a company here in Korea called Cymex to help me make Alpha. Matter of fact, I made Alpha here in Korea, and I got investors out of Singapore to back me in the development of Alpha to this point, to this level. And it was a lot of work developing the prototype, making the prototype. But I proved the concept, and the guy that was the major investor of this, we worked out a deal where we started when he left the company to start another group with his educational company, and he wants me to work. We're negotiating now where I can bring Alpha and other technologies, reading technologies, to his schools. So that's where I'm at right now. Looking for money.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you've kept busy and you've kept in the industry that you seem to love all these years.
Let me tell you something. With this pandemic going on, it's changed a lot of what technologies used to be that considered that not, I wouldn't say useful, but not just slowly start up, like e-learning and then remote learning. I mean, right now it's getting so that children are getting used to being educated remotely. And in some cases, it's effective. It's not the norm. It's not like sure there's plus and minuses on either way, but you definitely need the contact and the closeness and communion of children working together and being together in school. But with this pandemic, and in some places in some countries where children can't get to schools remotely, or whether they have trouble getting the expertise to the child or to the schools, this is where the technology can come in, and it's starting to show that, and that being used is starting to become the norm, and it will be probably in conjunction with this, what used to be the norm with going to the location for education, but having an education delivered to you interactively, and using a surrogate like a robotic or a character or an intelligent technology that helps assist because you never teach a child alone with technology just by itself. It's got to be the mother, parent, or the guardian or assistant with a child using the technology with it. So it will assist the teacher with the child, you know. And I don't know, what I've learned with education through technology, the learning isn't taught, but it's caught, you know, caught. Learning is caught by children naturally, you know. Why should they learn language so easily when they're children, you know? When you're adult, you got to struggle through it, you know, because at that age, the minds are just easily adaptable to using whatever means that that can deliver the content to help them in their education. And robotics, I hate to use the word robotics. I'll say the technology of artificial intelligence and character recognition and vision technology, all these things that are coming about, it's just going to expand and broaden that bandwidth so that can happen. You know, I truly believe that. I'm going to be a part of it, man. We got to put that technology, but I'm going to be a part of it.
Nice. Couple follow-up questions. Back at Atari, you mentioned the wheelchair project a lot. Did you work on any other projects there? Any other big things that you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I was the weirdo of the group, man. I mean, more amazed than one. When I look back at it, I shouldn't have been there, because then I should have been. I don't see where I could have been, because it was part of my growth into that area. But I can see why everybody saw my R&D robotics. Oh, well, you know something? I will say one thing. I didn't have a hand in some advising to this one project that was called a feedback joystick. And that was directly connected. There was a joystick that when you moved it around, depending on how much there was some
force.
Yeah, force. There was some feedback force. Mm-hmm. Like if you hit a brick wall, you feel that, you know, that force, or some sand, you know, water, you know. So I was there with some little hand. I don't forget who was on that, who was the major person on that project, but I remember being, you know, not involved. I want to say this: I had very little to do with it. That's the only other thing I can say. I had a little bit of, you know, touch to that, you know, by saying something or being involved in our meetings. We had Pong every week, and every week folks would sit down and just jab around, you know, and share ideas. It was called Pong, you know. We didn't call it a weekly meeting. Pong. Yeah.
How was the drug party culture?
Man, let me tell you something, man. Those white boys had some good weed. Some good weed, man. Because that's when I stayed high. I would say I stayed high all the time, because I was doing. I mean, that's the only time that I would say I would when someone say, "Hey, let's get high." When I was working on something, I was into it. I would say, "No, man, not right now." When, you know, keep focused. But man, and there was a lot of other, man. I don't know, but can I say this thing, man? I don't shouldn't say this thing, man. I might get in trouble, man. I don't care.
It was a long time ago.
I'm 65 years old. I'm old enough to say what I want. Yeah, man. There was some. And back then, you know, weed was not like, you know, easy going around like it is now. It was like, you know, hard to get. And they had, you know, those guys had Sesame and they had all kinds of stuff there. Man, and then that was abundance. I mean, you didn't have to pay for it, man. Somebody has some weed. Hey, man, get any weed? Yeah, man, get some weed. You know, smoke stuff. Yeah, that was. And I think also, no, coke wasn't. I don't know, man. I didn't mess with the coke or anything. I was too like, no, I was just the weed, man. I mean, weed. I was like 20-something years old. So I took a little weed, and I was kind of timid anyway. It was enough to get me high, a puff or two, you know. But there was a lot of stuff going on. I remember walking by some windows, not doors, and seeing some stuff going on. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about, man? Huh?
I think I do. I think people doing cocaine off the glass top of a battle zone and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say they were doing some in and outs about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was some. Listen, man. Like I said, I had some. I had myself. Man, I was a faithful man. But I did have a crush. Like I told you, I had a crush on Brenda Laura's brain. See, I loved her brain. I love her to this day. She's a brilliant lady, and I love talking with her. She made me feel really at ease. She was like a big sister to me then. A lot of people were like that.
Oh, that's so awesome. How did you find me? Because you commented on one of my YouTube videos.
Because David Lindemann, Jim Lindemann.
Jim, yeah.
Jim Lindemann. He wrote and told me and gave me links and stuff, and I said, "Oh, okay." We said, every once in a while, I think we used to have an anniversary one time. I never went to it because I was here in Korea. But my brother Ron went out there a couple of times, and we keep in touch, but not much now these days. We should, man. You know what? I think somebody should do a book or a full book on this, man, because there's so many stories. That's just for me, man. No, that is just for me. All those guys were unique. Every one of them were unique. From what I've seen, some of them were brilliant. Some of them were, the things that I see now, I say, oh man, I'm with this guy. We were doing this at Atari. Every little pieces of what I see came out of that. Not just out of Atari only, but I saw a lot of Atari research that came out of some brilliant minds, that were thinking about it initially. Pioneers, man. That's the way we're pioneers.
Yeah.
Truly.
All right, last question, I think. If you could send a message to the people who are still playing with their Atari computers today, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
Oh, what would I tell them? Put some wheels on it. Put some wheels on it and make that thing a robot, man. Make it do something, on the real world, Get it out into the real world, manipulate things with it. That's what I say. Listen, man, look at it, man. I'm a black man in Korea doing robotics. What the hell, man? What the hell? I recognize my own uniqueness because my passion is unique. The people I've met around me are unique. I've met some people. How do I meet these people, man? Why am I just a regular guy? I'm just a regular guy otherwise, except what I like and love to do, what I live and breathe doing. And has brought me to here, and I can go way back 40 years to the time I was at Atari Research, meeting those people, meeting Dr. Alan Kay, who gave me the break to meet these people and all. But I tell you, my Pacific perspective was unique, and also how it affected me. I think it affected a lot of people. I think were affected by the terms there Atari. But I am affected by Atari to this day. Matter of fact, I just talked with Quincy Joe last year around this time about doing another project. My old man still wanted to do something with me. And then that's another story I got to tell you too, because we after that Atari meeting, we did some other things together, man, No, but really, man, just some people, I met some brilliant guys there too that were amazing, man. The things they were thinking about, that are been happening now. I can look back and say, man, not many people may know, but I know this. Even Alan Kay, man. Alan Kay, he invented the damn computer, man, in the laptop, the personal computer.
Yeah.
That's him. All that, and also Windows. That come from Xerox PARC, man. That's his group and his involvement, man. I don't see the credit going to him. Somebody should shout out about that. Okay, yeah, man. Anybody that calls it, just tell them I said a shout out to them, man. I'll tell them I love them, man.
Cool.
Okay?
All right.
Peace.
Peace.